All right, I'm here with Ahsan, and I'm Bill Williams, Failing Daily. I think after our discussion, we both are. I wanted to welcome you all to the next episode. Ahsan's a really interesting guy. We had a fun conversation, and we've got a few good stories about failure in there, and I think some good advice for everybody. So I hope you join us. Thank you guys for tuning in, and Ahsan, thanks for doing it. Appreciate it. Welcome to our next episode. I'm Bill Williams, Failing Daily. That's like a verb and a noun, I think. But I'm here with Ahsan Raza, who is the owner, CEO of KOAR Cloud Solutions, who agreed to spend some time and chat about all this stuff. So, Ahsan, can we just start by getting a little background from you and maybe a funny story or two? We'll always take those.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the episode. I'm excited to be here. A little about me, definitely took the road less, traveled for most. I'm a product of immigrant parents that, had their dreams of me being a doctor, engineer, one of the categories that, I didn't really fall into. Sorry, mom and dad. But yeah, grew up in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC for most of my life. Went to school locally as well, and then really, started my career in the public sector through a lot of the consulting companies that I applied for, and learned a lot about IT throughout my journey. Started from the help desk industry to understanding asset management, jumped around in management, and then really got into programming and fell into ServiceNow. And yeah, that started the journey for me on starting KOAR Cloud Solutions. It was a passion of mine, and I felt like I can really solve problems for a lot of the customers that I used to work for. And yeah, that brought us to 2 years into KOAR Cloud Solutions.
So why KOAR? What's the
it's something silly. It's the initial of my myself and my partner. So Kovena, Ofori, and then Ahsan Raza, and then just consulting solutions.
Perfect. No, that's good. That's a good name.
Very simple.
It's a good play on words. I like it.
Yeah,
that's good. What's your domain? What's your website?
It's www.corecloudsolutions.com.
Okay. All right.
We try to shorten it, but someone owns it and wants over $600,000 for it. So we're like,
somebody owns KOAR. It really?
Yeah, just like core.com. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then you'll be mad
maybe one day.
I got IPTA for 20 grand. Yeah. And at the time, everyone thought that was ridiculous. And I'm like, IPT, the 3-letter is 100 grand. I'm not doing that. That's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. We saw 650 and I was like, we'll change. We'll change it.
That's good. That's funny. All right. So I'm going to just kind of move right into the next one, which is a little more about just kind of your journey. So you said you founded KOAR Cloud Solutions with your partner.
Yep.
And then what?
Oh man, then it was,
What year was this, by the way? How long you been around?
This was in 2022.
Okay.
All right. We're just over 2 years. Both of us have similar backgrounds. I'm a little bit older, but very strong in, just understanding how IT works as a whole from, bottom up. And then both of us have really extensive experience with ServiceNow, which has really given us a blueprint, and maybe a little ease of, getting into the business. Because when we first started, and you probably know this from, your journeys, you kind of just want to do everything, right? You're like, hey, we just want to help. And you start so broad, and then you learn, even though you plan to say, hey, we're going to be narrow focused, you learn pretty quick, like, hey, have a plan, be narrow, have that niche that you can really provide value. And ServiceNow was something that, we started to close in on and really seeing success early.
So what was it if it wasn't ServiceNow? I know you as a ServiceNow guy.
Yeah.
And what were
So,
you guys looking at?
we have, other expertise, not just myself, but like our employees themselves. Cybersecurity was going to be a big one because by the time we started, cybersecurity was getting started. So a lot of the problems of like understanding the policies, understanding the framework of cybersecurity, not just the technology, right? We felt like there was a, opportunity for us to provide value there. And, working with the bigger companies, you don't get what you get with a smaller business, right? Our small size is our strength. And I know a lot of small business might not feel that in the beginning, but cybersecurity was one area. We were really into AWS as well, just managing infrastructure. But then we were just really good at ServiceNow. ServiceNow we knew was just one tool. Um, we had talent on the Salesforce side as well. So really started getting into COTS products because we saw where the industry was going, like the whole modernizing efforts across the public sector. So we knew we could provide value, and we were lucky enough where a lot of these bigger platforms that are being implemented in a lot of these agencies, we had the skill sets to be successful.
It's great.
Yeah.
You got any good juicy failures from your startup days?
Oof. Well, I know you and I have talked about this.
Yeah, well,
In the beginning, I think we were hiring to fill the demand, right? A lot of our failures were, bringing on the right talent, but not having the structure in place because, it was more about filling the demands that were coming in versus, making sure that we hire the right people, have clear, you know, communication with what their roles are, strategy, aligning them to our objectives of growth. And in the beginning, I don't think we did we could have done a lot better in the beginning to outline that first and be very clear. So when, employees came, whether they were, W-2s or they were contractors, they had a clear understanding of where we were headed. And I think that was our biggest failure. And because we've only been in the business 2 years, we've been blessed where a lot of our failures have been very short-lived, right? So we learned really fast, like, we're bringing these folks on, we're definitely meeting the demands of the clients, right? But it's always a short term because we don't have the structure in place, right? We're not putting structure for our employees that are coming in so they have a clear understanding of where they're headed. And you probably know there's that's one recipe where you'll start to lose employees, start to lose interest, and then your own employees kind of look at you like, oh, I don't know what the objectives here are, right? Long term. So our biggest failure in the beginning was that. And then we really just stepped back and we said, all right, for now, we don't need to say yes to everything, right? It's let's step back and let's really put systems in place that's going to make us successful. And early on, the value of investing in ISO standards, a lot of folks, might see that as like, oh, that's so big to take on so early. But for us, the value was, we understood the structure that it brings and we believed in it. So it was easy to follow. And we've been around it for the majority of our career. Now, do I love the audits? Probably not. Like I don't know if I
which
love.
ISO do you have or ISOs?
We are ISO 27001,
Hmm.
the latest version, ISO 9000, and then ISO 20000 certified
Which one's 20,000?
is the service management. Like,
Service management. Oh, good.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's good. So I was going to kind of ask you what's your practical, frankly, for me, I don't know. I mean, other people would probably be interested, but like some of the practical things, what did you implement? Are you really using ISO like a way to run your projects? Is that helpful to you as opposed
It's
to, oh, we just did
helpful.
it to get a standard?
No, it's helpful because, before we were just going in, we were very reactive in solving problems, right? Customer had a problem, we solved it. And then for us, even though we were in the government space, to understand what the government wants us to adhere to, I still kind of walked us through that process. Like, oh, hey, a lot of these standards around security, quality, right? A lot of these controls that you implement, the government wants to know that you understand it and you understand it from their lens. And we didn't have that history early on. And I think that was another failure because you get in a room with folks that are like, oh, you understand the technology, you get these platforms, but you don't really understand why we do things the way we do it, right? And I think that's the value that it added to core. It gave us that early on versus just keeping us reactive. And
Are you guys?
we do go back to it all the time. Like,
Well, that's good. You'll have to. We'll talk more about that because I don't
yeah,
know that we do it, use it, but I don't know that we use it as well. Like we tend to rely a little more on, like, I would say, an agile methodology, as I know you do, but for
yeah.
running of the business. So merging the two would be interesting. But were you guys all like commercial guys as opposed to government, or did you have government experience going into this?
We had mostly government experience as
Okay.
resources, like contractors. And, you know, a lot of that, you know, brought a lot of value to us, like, you know, bringing that in and understanding how government works and even just how to understand, you know, what are their problems for the year that they're trying to solve? Like, what are their biggest initiatives, right? Because that's public stuff. So being able to research that was a lot easier and it was easier to consume, right? Um, you know, didn't do much, you know, on the public side. So I think I would say, you know, I kind of veered off a little bit in my personal experience, a lot of healthcare. So I had like 3, 4 years of healthcare industry experience. Um, but didn't, you know, I had more contacts on the government side that I know I could, or clients that I can help right away once I kind of went on my own. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the healthcare experience seems like it would give you some experience with regulated environments anyway,
it
whether
does.
it's
Yeah.
specifically federal or DoD, maybe not, but
Yeah.
they have many of the same standards. Let's talk about leadership, management, your company, and then after that we can move into maybe company industry kind of stuff
Yeah.
that's more general. But I'm just interested in hearing how do you what's your approach to managing and leading in your company, and how do you, I'm interested how you work with your partner, who kind of has what roles, how you view what your philosophy is for management and leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with just communication, right? You have to have open communication. I feel like 99% of the problems that we have or we face, you know, in our business or personal lives, you know, it can be solved by open communication. You know, this strategy, you know, at core is really about the ownership, giving ownership to everyone that comes on board. That's why it's so important for us to hire the right people that, you know, understand our mission. You know, and part of that is us voicing the mission clearly to who we bring on. Uh, and yeah, you know, we've seen success when we hire the right people and we give them the right ownership. It gives them accountability. And then usually that follows with, you know, they get awards, they get a higher pay, they get bonuses, and that keeps them excited. The biggest thing is finding the right people that really care about solving the problems. And I know that's much easier said than actually done because, you know, we all have different lives and different want, you know, things that we want out of opportunities. But we've been getting much better and being much more blessed with hiring the folks that understand the mission. They want to learn more every day and they want to help the customer, you know, create value, right? Save money, get, you know, a ROI, a high ROI in their investments. So for us, it's really about empowerment. And then, of course, you know, part of that, and, you know, you probably do a great job at this at your company, you know, is it's not a, you don't just ask people to do stuff and kind of walk away from it. You have to help people build up. You have to do the check-ins. You have to make sure that they're okay. That's something that I pride myself in. And, you know, my wife will probably tell me that I do it too much where I'm not spending enough time at home. But really caring about everyone so they know that even though, you know, everyone says don't say a business is like a family, but they know that they can count on each other and count on me as, you know, part of their leadership. So
So I heard you say the right person is like a mission oriented kind of
yeah.
person with a bunch of other words around that, but kind of mission oriented, and they care. Are there other things that make people the right person that are relevant, or is that most of it?
I mean, I think, you know, when you meet the right person, you know how much time they invest in their craft. For us, you know, knowing that someone is available, someone can kind of, you know, balance their work and life, right? There's some accountability that they take. I think that, you know, there's other factors to, you know, them being the right person. someone that's going to be the right fit for core, meaning like, we can all get along, we all understand each other, respect each other. All those factors matter as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's
Tough one,
good.
huh?
That's good. Do you have any examples of yeah, that didn't go so well kind of stuff, either leadership or
Oh man,
management challenges?
early on, we, you know, not that I pride myself in it, but we went from hiring fast to firing fast, and we kind of surged to firing fast and then hiring slow, and that really brought it gave us enough time to vet the person out, but then it also allowed us to let the person that's coming in know that what they're walking into. And what we took out of that was, we improved our hiring process. Slow doesn't always mean that we're taking forever. It just means that we put a structure on hiring. Our onboarding was improved from when we first started, where we were making all the mistakes. And a lot of the mistakes we were making, I kind of take accountability for. We brought people in, we didn't have the structure in place, we didn't do the check-ins, and in the beginning, because it felt like, mine and my partner's baby, I did a lot of the stuff. But when we started to kind of step back, I think that's a misconception on a lot of small businesses where the owners have to do everything. We started bringing people that wanted to do more for core outside of their daily jobs. And I think that's what goes a long way. It's not just what they're doing, what they got hired to do. They're taking some of the weight off, but they understand the why, right?
Right. Right. So I'm gonna tell you a very small example uh, of a story, and I'm just curious if you have any like this. Now, this isn't with my current company, but a previous recruiting company I owned, and I had a young lady working for me that was a recruiter, and she actually it was in the we were doing medical staffing, and she left in the middle of the day because her mom had died, like
Ooh.
very dramatic, and and then I didn't hear from her for a few weeks, and I was concerned. She hadn't called or anything, and I was just trying to. I reached out to her, couldn't reach her, and then I finally got like her home phone number. I had it or something. I was like, well, it's been weeks now. I'm going to call and see if she's okay. And I called, and her mom answered, and I was like, so Jasmine told me that you had died actually, and her mom goes, really? Well, I'm going to kill her. And I was like, okay, well, she doesn't need to come back, but I'm glad that you're okay. I'm glad that she's okay. She's like, yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So anyway, not a great moment for any of us, and a really interesting and like poorly handled. Obviously, she didn't want to do that job. She probably could have just told me. But do you have any funny good stories like that with employees that you can share without getting in trouble?
Yeah, early on, I think we saw everything because especially, we started this business and it was just remote. So there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of distractions.
Right.
We've had a couple employees that, would get on a call, fully understand everything, and then you would just never see, any outcomes. And these are like senior folks that are well in their career that we brought in for BD, and kind of went through the same excuses like, oh hey, someone's really sick, this is happening here, um and they would never have any outcomes, but they will mess up and send the emails. Like, I got an email that you could tell they forgot to delete what they were drafting at the bottom, but the lie was on the top.
Oh,
But
oh,
I understood, so I picked up the phone and kind of called, and I won't say the name, but spoke to him. I said, hey, I understand, but there must be a reason that you feel like you can't be productive, or what's going on. And then, not sure why he didn't share much. Maybe he didn't want to share it. He just ended up kind of blatantly telling me, oh, I have two jobs, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And this falls short on the priority list. And just like you did, but I probably didn't do it that day. I kind of stepped back, took enough time to put together his current effort, and then kind of just said, hey, this is probably not going to work out, because there's
yeah,
nothing, there's no commitment, right? But I thought it was funny because I didn't know how to approach him, because I was like, you just I see your truth on the bottom, and then I see your lie on the top. Like, do I confront you?
I
But
think, I think, and I don't, I say this, I guess, in a funny way, but I think a couple more years of this, and the next thing you'll do is you'll call the guy up and just read him the bottom of the email. Say, what's this all about? Because
oh,
it's funny, it's kind of like,
it's so funny, and it's saved because I kind of use it as an example, but I've kind of reworded everything. I'm like, look, when you guys are not so focused, even when you're trying to lie, you're gonna miss things. And I share that as an example of not being focused.
right,
So yeah, there's some laughter to it. Because to
right.
me, that focus was so bad that even drafting up a lie to send to me so you don't show up to work, I see the truth on the bottom.
That's interesting. So do you have, this has been operational, I'm just curious, because I do, but do you have like, I don't know, a policy about whether folks can do jobs outside?
We do. We understand that people have different passions, right? So our policy is clear around, competitive work,
Right.
working for partners. You know, they have to let us know if they're gonna have other jobs, but it's not so we know what they're doing outside of core. It helps us make sure that, we understand if, some things happen. So if you need to take care of another job and it's not happening often and you communicate it, I think we can, walk through that scenario and be okay.
Yeah. We
Um,
agree. We agree.
mm,
I agree. Like if it's competitive, that's not fair. I'm not paying you to help a competitor, but if it's
yeah,
uncompetitive, I have this really strong sense of, it's a free country,
yeah,
and if it's not interfering with your job, God bless you, go do it. Like, in fact, I'm entrepreneurial, right? So it's fun
yeah,
to see people do things that are unrelated, that are entrepreneurial, and sometimes you can help them. So, but
yeah.
it's a conundrum sometimes because it can get like they can
Well,
get busy with those other things too.
well, yeah, and especially today, right? And I think, for us early on, we had a really strong person that we were building up that I spent a lot of time, with, and I mean, she was great, but got busy, and you could tell, focus wasn't 100% there. Um, but then, the communication wasn't there either. So it was a resource that, I think I take accountability on it. Maybe I could have checked in more. And this was early on.
Right.
I helped it build her up, but it was one of those things where I was like, oh, you know what? There must have been a wall that I put up that they couldn't communicate well enough to me that, they have other interests, whether it's at core or other places. Because I think you can resolve a lot of that. But I learned from that. So, I check in with my employees all the time.
Well, I'll say this to you: you can do everything humanly possible to be available and open, and it's two-way street. So it's up to the other individual has to take advantage of that as well. And
Oh, I
I
agree.
run into that, and the further I go along, for some reason it feels like, and I never quite understand because I don't feel this way, but the less approachable I seem to be, even though I'm the same person. And it's a real conundrum. It's difficult
Yeah.
because it's like, just call me. I'm good. Like anyone can
Yeah.
call me, but
Yeah. And
it doesn't work that way.
no, yeah. And you're right. I made peace with that. And I think it's made me like a better leader and
Yeah.
definitely stronger in leading core. It's like, I don't dwell on those scenarios as much. I try to learn from it, but I know there's other employees, customers, driving core, which still needs more of my attention. So really just balancing where I put the attention that I have towards the right things.
Okay. So you talked a lot about what I would just call mentorship. You're
Yeah.
mentoring those folks. What kind of role has that played? Either you mentoring others, like do you have a structured program, or maybe you being mentored by folks? Like talk about mentorship in your life a little
Yeah.
bit.
So I think, especially like running your own business, you have to have a mentor, someone that, understands what you're doing, maybe someone that's in the same industry, or someone that understands, having your own, like having a own business or being an entrepreneur. I think that's key. I do have a, critical person in my life that, you know, he's always guiding me, right? Straight edge, lets me know when I'm wrong, lets me know what I need to improve on. Um, and that's what I personally need is, it's like I want to hear that where can I do better, right?
Right.
How can I improve, not just for myself but core. But I also believe that you can have more than one, right? Like I know we're on a call, but hey, you've done this journey of starting your own business. Like I'm 2 years in, I can probably learn a lot from your wisdom and your own journey, especially the people that you talk to. So I feel like you got to have enough mentors that are willing to be your mentor,
Right.
because it's all about growing, right? And then hopefully one day I can pay it forward, right, to the ones that
Yeah.
are coming up. I think
Yeah.
that's very important.
Well, listen, if you're ready to fail every day, I'm your guy. Kind
Yeah,
of,
hey,
I only learn that way. I haven't figured out how to learn by doing it right for some reason. So,
yeah, I think I might
oh
follow
yeah,
that plan.
yeah.
But the second
Oh,
part of that,
wait. You
yeah.
mentioned the mentors. Did you actually? I'm just curious. Did you seek out a mentor? Like, can you be my mentor, kind of thing, or did you fall into those relationships?
No, I seek for help because
Yeah.
because I knew that you know I can't do everything. It takes a community, right, to like at least to grow. And it's not, I always say this, and a lot of people will be like, well, it's always about the money. I'm like, no, it's really not about the transactions. It's, I think those are part of the journey, but it's really about the genuine relationship. So like, my mentor today, I call him all the time. We have a great relationship. And you know, I think I had to ask him that, I tell him, I'm like, yeah, I'm like your little brother, right? Like you don't get to just throw me away. So like, we'll joke around about that. But yeah, I think asking and setting those expectations and letting him accept it is something that more people need to do more clearly, right? Versus just look up to somebody.
I love that answer, and it's not just for business owners. Like I think
No.
people in general, and you hear folks say, "Well, I've never had a mentor, or I don't really have one." Well, you know what? It's up to you to go get one, right? And it's not just doesn't just fall into your lap. And then I would agree with you as well. I had one recently. I happened to meet this great guy who's like a public sector CEO of a public company, which is completely foreign to me, but just wonderful, wonderful person. And he's like, "Hey, if you ever have any questions or want to talk about kind of the private equity markets and how that whole game works, just give me a call." And I was like, "I'm gonna call you," like,
Yeah.
because I could just be like, "Oh yeah, I appreciate it," and then never call. But I'm gonna seek out that advice a little bit and and chat with him. It's not he's not in my industry, but you could learn something, right? It's something
Oh yeah, you can learn a
interesting
lot.
and different. You know,
Yeah.
maybe I'll get him to go do an interview. That's what I got to do. Suck him into,
Yeah. I mean, that would be a fun one.
right. He probably has.
Yeah,
It's
that's a lot of
probably he's
knowledge.
probably if you and I are private company guys. He's at a public
Yeah.
company. He might be like, I don't know. I don't know if that's good
Yeah.
for him, right? So I don't know how
Yeah.
that works, but anyway. All right. Well, that's really good. So, do you see yourself providing, or do you put any energy into providing leadership in the industry? And that could be whatever your customers service now as a technology or something else. Do you spend energy and time thinking about how to provide industry leadership or to understand what's going on in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, so, from just trying to, master my craft, like ServiceNow has been a big part of our journey as of the last year, right? A year and a half, probably. The first part is, I got to get myself in order. I always got to be up to, speed on where ServiceNow is going and how can, customers use it to solve their problems. So a lot of that starts with me first. So, right now I'm in a CTA program as a company owner, which is, a technical architect program, which ServiceNow provides. Is a 3-month commitment. We're midway through, but I know the value of that is when I do go learn about customers. And, right now we're at FAA with you guys. We're in other DoD spaces as well. So being able to understand that side of the world and, just articulate it into a ServiceNow solution, it makes it easy. And I feel like that's a responsibility for me as a small business to show value upfront. Like, hey, I really invested in this craft to make sure that you guys are doing the right things and achieving the value, right? Letting the technology work for you. So
So how do you balance risk versus reward and maybe an example is spending 3 months as one of the owners, you know, all that other time. That might be an example. There might be better ones though. I don't know. But how do you balance risk and reward in these things you invest in and
Oh
do?
man. So we have a thing at Core where if we have an idea, let's break it down. Let's talk through
Okay.
the downsides, right? Because what are the
Walk me through that.
downsides?
What's break it down mean? What do you guys do?
Like if we get in a room, it'll be the senior folks or just the leadership in general. An idea comes in, there's always that first wave of like, oh man, this is exciting. AI, let's do it. We'll
Yeah, yeah,
we'll go take
yeah.
a class of AI. We'll start posting marketing materials. Um, but we have to break it down from every angle, right? One angle is the technology, the other angle is the understanding of the idea in general. Like, do we have expertise around it? And then we start to break down, like, why would this not work for us, right? Are we too small? Do we not have the right skills? Does this cost a lot upfront? Is it worth the investment with everything else that we got going on, right? How do we prioritize jumping onto this new idea? So really breaking that down, we use digital boards. So like, stickies, everyone just puts up an idea, then everyone gets a chance to talk about it. There'll be some healthy debates back and forth. And then we always go back to, well, where is this going to take us from where we said we wanted to go? Does this change where the company's headed? Right? Is it too far from where we want to go? So we really start to do alignment of our objectives as a company. Um,
So who are you then? What do you have a mission statement or a who we are statement or like what's the highest level version of your vision?
Yeah, I mean, for us, our mission is, our customers, right? Solving their problems.
Yep.
And that comes, I think for us, that comes from we've been in those chairs before the business. We've seen the pain points, we've seen the lack of transparency, right? We've seen slow decision making. A lot of the government agencies, that's taxpayer dollars, right? So with the work that we provide in helping them do better on their side, it gives a better service to the public, right? The public gets faster service, more efficient service, right? Efficiency is a big word right now, but being able to see that, our mission statement is really to be problem solvers, but to also take pride in being who we are as a small company because we can pivot faster. We're more flexible. We don't have to go through 300 hoops to get what the customer's asking for, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And I think those are our strengths.
So this is a little more personal, maybe not a ton, but
Yeah.
how do you stay motivated when it kind of sucks? Because
Oh,
sometimes it does.
it that's a tough question because
I don't know.
I I don't know if I ever lose motivation, but being having a strong faith and I think it comes from my parents. May their souls rest in peace, but you know they were immigrants. They came here, and I didn't appreciate their work ethics when they were coming up, right? And then you realize it when you get older. You're like, holy crap! My parents who were Islamic faith driven didn't understand IT technology, didn't know corporate America, but they didn't realize how they were living the American dream. So, when I see that and when I look back on that journey, my headspace never goes into like I have bad days, but I kind of just look up and I'm like, just get me through today. Tomorrow's another day. You know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to
Good.
sleep.
You have
you know,
perspective. Yeah. It could be
it,
worse
but
or
it,
whatever. Yeah.
but I haven't yet, and maybe I'm still early in it, Bill. But I have not lost. I haven't had a day where I've lost the motivation. So,
It's
and I
good.
don't know if that happens later. Um, but I have bad days.
Yeah. I don't think I would, at least speaking for myself, I
Yeah.
feel the same. I don't think I've ever lost my motivation.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of rough days that I could specifically tell you about
Yeah.
another time,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
I yeah, I've ended up in the hospital after one the next
Oh,
day because my back went out, but I know it was because of what happened. It was directly related to just getting stomped. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
So, but yeah, try hard not to let it affect the physical as much as I can, right? You
yeah.
don't want to do that. I do not have any hair because of this business, but then again, maybe that would have happened anyway. So we'll see. We'll see if we can knock your hair out. You're
Yeah,
getting a
yeah.
little
Well,
bunch
yeah,
up
it's
there.
happening. It's getting
Yep.
thinner.
Yeah, right. You got any advice or kind of calls to action for folks? Like these are the things you should think about.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. Because I wish I had given or were I was given advice. Because I think the first part is really know what you're committing to. Really understand, what the startup life really brings, and be selfless. Make sure that that decision is made not just for yourself, but your family's involved in that decision, because it takes, it's like another kid. It takes everything you have, um, and you don't have control of, or you don't always have control of when your time is needed for who and for what. The other one I would say is, have a passion in what you do. This having your own business is just not another job. It's something that you need to care about. You need to help it grow. Um, and the last part, which is very important to me, is when you start a business, you bring other lives into it that are outside of your family. And these are the lives of your customers, your employees, and they trust you, you know, to make sure that they have a good place to be, to feed their families, their dreams. And if you can see that in humans, I feel like that'll keep you motivated, because there's, a lot of people are looking up to a business owner to deliver services, to take care of employees, to help grow, mentor. Um, and you have to take that seriously. And you have to be very intentional, because you get breaks, but it doesn't go out of your head at any point.
So what's your I feel like you've partially answered it, but what's your passion in all of this? Meaning, I guess in part, where do you get your satisfaction from running the business, being part of it?
Uh, for me, it's really living right by my parents. I think that's, being able to see that they didn't even realize that they lived the American dream and the work ethics and just who they were. I never saw them be lazy or, give up on an opportunity. And, as parents, you just see them go to work, come home, cook, do what they have to, and you don't really hear parents complain. So, that I think that's something that's instilled in me, and that's a driver. The other parts are trying to think for, and I got to go back to the question, but I got so lost in my parents.
That's
Sorry.
okay. I was just asking what your passion or where you get your
Yeah.
satisfaction from. So
Sorry. Yeah.
part
Let
of
me
it
bring
was
it.
obviously kind of showing your parents they were living the American dream and now you're
Yeah.
doing it. That sounds pretty awesome to me.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of got lost, was I started thinking about parents, but being able to see that and living right by them is, that was the first part of it. The second part was, I've always been about putting other people before me, which sometimes is a curse, but for me is what makes me feel happy. So if I can change a life of an employee, a partner, you know, anyone on the customer side, or just helping people in general, I think that's where my passion drives from. And being able to go in to, whether it's a government agency or helping people get jobs, it brings me joy. But landing like big projects, and we're going to do this for FAA pretty soon, and that'll be a fun celebration. But to modernize their environment with the work that we're doing, there is a, it's like a football game, right? You can practice all week long, and then when you
Yep.
finally get to the game, there's a joy about it that all the hard work pays off, but it makes, everyone around you better and more excited. So I think my passion really is around about the people and the problems that we're solving.
That's great. Oh, by the way, since you pointed it out, I don't think it's a full disclosure thing, but we're partners working
Yeah,
on
yeah.
a program together.
Yeah.
So, which has been great, by the way. It's been great.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, that's really good. Um, all right, so let's go on to government efficiency for a minute,
All right.
Doge or whatever. What's your take on all that? What's your big picture view first?
You know, I try to stay out of politics as much as I can, but you know, if it's needed, and I try to follow as much as I can. So, right now, just if Doge is just doing audits, they're working with key stakeholders, and my understanding of it is correct. I think it's the first step, but in my everyday life, there's nothing abnormal about it, right? So I think the first step is to know what the problems are, right? And if Doge is highlighting a lot of that, then I think the public needs to know, right? And then
Mhm.
I think we all kind of take with it. And I know there's going to be folks that are going to react one way to another, but I think having a democracy, you don't get to hate your country, 4 years before and then love it because of which side you're on. I think we all are Americans, so if this is the next 4 years, we got to hope for that. We're going to come out of this stronger. And with me saying that, we can lose a contract tomorrow and it impacts us directly. But trying to find, not being it selfish about myself or about the company, if that makes America be positioned better, I'm all for it.
Oh, well said. Well
Yep.
said. What do you think the kind of optimal role is for like government contractors, us, our businesses in this whole process?
Just like with any president, I think our role is to do what the needs of the government is in this moment of time, right? So as contractors, we're still supposed to come in and modernize what they're working on, and that's still the top initiative.
I love the fact that we're in small businesses
Yeah,
because I love the idea of competing on being efficient. That's
yeah,
good for me. You know what I mean? And it's good for
yeah,
you.
yeah. It
So,
is.
we can make decisions and be efficient and do better in our jobs fairly quickly. We may not have all the resources of the huge guys, but they're going to be slow rolling it because that's the way it is when you get that
Yeah,
big. At least that's what I think. So,
yeah. No, I believe the same thing.
yeah. So maybe there's the opportunity in being
Yeah,
nimble and efficient.
yeah. But
Um,
I think the first 12 months is going to be like you said. We're not going to panic. We're going to ride this out, and I think for us as a company, we'll figure a way out. Like,
right. Yep.
we have to face what we have to face. And if we're blessed enough where the impact isn't all negative, then, we're blessed. But if not, we started the business, we have a purpose. And I think we can still achieve the purpose in general of just helping people, right? Solve problems with technology.
Right. Which is a great mission and
Yeah.
a good end to our conversation. So thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you very much for talking to me today. It was great, and we'll do it again. We talked before we chatted. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be like have thoughts on this, and then want to redo it. Right? Like every time I do it, I have different thoughts too.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to doing this again in a while,
Yeah.
and then seeing how your business is going and what you're working on. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate it.
you're very welcome. So I'm Bill Williams. This is Ahsan Raza, and we're both failing daily.
Yeah.
So go to failingdaily.com if you want to see content, this and also this information as well as YouTube and LinkedIn, and you can connect to everything there. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.